If you want to see where kidnappers with guns will leave you alone, if you just hit one of them with a stick and do nothing else, where a school's prom night is held in a private mansion, and where the lead actress will probably need physiotherapy from carrying the movie on her back, A Night in 2005 is the movie for you. The movie, written and directed by Temidayoma Ojeola, examines the effect of trauma while unearthing the dynamics of power, justice, and vengeance. It is currently streaming on Prime Video. We open up the movie with Star Plus's Olufumi soundtrack as our main character, Ife, gets ready to go for prom night, which is weirdly happening in someone's private mansion. As you can expect, where teenagers are gathered, the spirit of truth or dare is always in their midst. And Ife gets there to kiss her bestie's boyfriend, Obayemi Dada or Opi Dada. They make such a big deal out of will she or won't she, when she could have just ended up drinking, which she eventually does. So what was all that agonizing about? Did you actually really want to kiss the guy? So we fast forward to present day and see an older Ife, played by Dima Okojie, and recently returned from schooling abroad, with her fiance Paul discussing the candidacy of Opi Dada for Lagos State gubernatorial elections. It's all over all the news and all the blogs. On the radio, they say,
Up next, we're diving to one of our biggest hits, Olufumi. So wherever you are, sit back, relax, and
even though it's probably 2020 now, I think an error was made because Olufumi by Star Plus can be a hit when you have the new Range Rovers and iPhone 13 Pro Max in your movie. I guess they bought the copyright for this movie and just wanted to make their money count by playing it twice, I guess. Paul really wants to discuss wedding plans and start making babies, but Ife doesn't seem to be in the headspace for it yet, even though they've been engaged for about a year. Her mother, looking forward to the wedding while also being short on cash, rushes to ingratiate herself with Opi Dada's mother by attending a campaign meeting uninvited. But it doesn't really go well because Ife's mother, played by Bimbo Akintola, acts like she ingested half a kilo of cocaine before the camera started rolling. She hints that she might resort to blackmail if she's not included to partake in the national cake. If you are watching, I recently reviewed Christmas in Lagos by Jade Oshiberu a few days ago. So if you haven't, you can check that out. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, share among your friends, and leave a comment if you like this kind of content. Okay, now back to the show. It's very obvious that Ife, our main character, is going through some things. You can see it in the way she talks, in the way she looks. She looks like mostly very haggard for a lot of the movie. And you can also see it in her mannerisms. You just know that there is some mental health issue or something traumatic that she is dealing with. After attempting to break off things with her fiance, Ife's mother comes up with an assignment for her. So she sent Ife to the village to convince a grand uncle to relinquish the title of a certain piece of land to her so that they could sell it to settle some bank loans and maybe maintain their high-end lifestyle. Now, why would she send her daughter, who has never ever met this grand uncle, to retrieve a title to a hotly contested piece of land? Like, this was an utter mystery to me, if not even completely dangerous in his own merit. If he actually asks this question, and is told by an obviously cooked up Bimbo Akintola, because that's the only way I can describe her overacting, that Ife's grandmother wanted to will the land to Ife but had died before doing so, whatever that means. It's just a lot of nonsense talk. So, some background on the gubernatorial candidate, Opi Dada. Even though he has grown into a politician and has married a woman from another political family to realize his political ambitions, Opi Dada is still secretly seeing his old girlfriend from school. That's the one who is best friends with Ife, Harry. We can also see that he has a bit of a mean streak. Even though he recognized Ife's mother during the campaign meeting, he denied ever knowing Ife when his wife asked about it later that evening, as Ife's mother had mentioned Ife when introducing herself. All is not really well at home because rumors are beginning to swell that he married his wife just for the political connections and not for love. Some blogger carries the news, and since then it's been a bit of a bother to his wife, so he tries to calm her down, but ruins it all by trying to choke her during sexy time later that night. Ife, on her part, and against all common sense, goes to the village or something. I think that place like Bejuleki, and runs into a bit of trouble as her car breaks down just before she arrives at destination. So she had to complete the journey on foot. Her meeting with her grand uncle doesn't, of course, get up to a great start because number one, she meets him disciplining his daughter's child. I actually don't know if the lady is his daughter. I'm not sure. I don't think it's made super clear. Number two, it doesn't take long for her to get her own piece of the whip after she says,
You're squatting on land that doesn't even belong to you.
even though she's our main character, that was one beating that I actually supported because what the hell are you doing here? Since her car has broken down, she really can't go back to Lagos, so they come to a kind of fragile peace as she stays with Baba's daughter. Later that night, she attempts to speak with Baba again concerning the land, but the old man is not having it at all. But they sort of arrive at another truce over the following night. We also hear a bit of a backstory about the land. Apparently, it had belonged to both her maternal grandfather and that same grand uncle. But her granddad had hated farm work and he left it, taking all the family's money, including his own family, in order to move to Lagos. He later came back to apologize, but he was rebuffed by his brother, this uncle. That was basically how her grandfather relinquished ownership of his stake in the farm. Ife's mother, being insane, somehow got it into her head that she had any rights to the land. It was really already out of her hands before she was even a teenager or something. Ife's bestie, Ari, is launching a new perfume line the next day. So Ife, car now fixed, takes her leave to attend the event. Unfortunately, she had not been able to collect the land documents from her uncle, of course, and actually even supports his ownership now, so that she gets into an argument with her mother about it. Her mother acknowledges,
You've known those people for all of 5 minutes, yet you call them family.
which reinforces the stupidity of sending your daughter to wrestle with people who don't even know her. Like, what were you thinking? Well, I said she was probably drugged up. Mentally, Ife is in somewhat of a better place now, so she goes to the event, which has a nice logo, by the way, with her fiance Paul. As it happens, OP Dada also happens to be a surprise guest at the event, and things go sideways very soon. While he's on stage extolling Ari and the perfume and also actually turning the whole event into a mini campaign, Ife decides to tell her bestie, Ari, who she didn't know was still super close to Dada from their school days, that he took advantage of her on prom night all those many years ago. Problem is, she didn't whisper it. She just screamed the whole thing out, bringing an end to the proceedings as Dada lives in embarrassment while everyone whips out their camera phone to document the scandal in real time. Ari is torn between supporting her friends and the disruption that her bestie just caused to her lunch event. Ife's mother, on the other hand, is curiously calm and dismissive. Ife leaves the event in tears and goes on a live stream where she details the event of that night in 2005, remarking that Opi Dada should not be allowed to hold any position in power. As can be expected, public opinion is divided over her accusation. She later goes on TV and we find out she actually informed her mother about the matter, but that one never reported it to the police. The TV host, who is obviously paid off by OP Dada and co, basically demolishes her case live on air. I don't really understand why Dada is actually backstage on this TV show. I know it's for effect, but it doesn't make sense in the world of the story that he would be here at this moment. Like, what is he doing here? As we heard before, Ife's mother knew of this assault, but the truth is that she had been paid off by OP Dada's family to the tune of about to the tune of $1 million to keep the secret. Again, we come up with a situation where a Nigerian screenwriter or director betrays their lack of understanding of large numbers. In what world would OP Dada's parents do this? We don't know what is at stake, so it's not believable. We don't know if the mother or father held important positions at that point, or even if Ife's mother was a VIP. Like, why would you pay the crazy sum of $1 million to keep this secret? Isn't half of that, even less than half of that, enough to kill the case with the police or in court? Like, something funny, because I also don't know if the writers intended it. At some point, Ife's mother says, you are not the first person to be assaulted. And then,
What happened to sucking it up and moving on? That's what you do. That's what we all did.
really? I would be... Wait, suck it up and move on? Like, I would be very surprised if the pun in this statement was unintended. After this whole messy situation, Ife travels back to her granduncle's farm for some peace and quiet. Opi Dada's mother visits Ife's mothers to hash things out, which is how we learn about the bribe settlement. The storyline goes sideways from here, though. So, Dada's mother is ostensibly here to extract the location of Ife from her mother. What for, you may ask? I believe it's so that they can kidnap Ife, possibly to keep her quiet. Her mother, Ife's mother, also requested that the farm be burned down, right? Okay, let's see what actually happens. Dada and one of his henchmen invade the farm to try and kidnap Ife. Her grand uncle interferes and is shot dead almost immediately. While the henchman was attempting to kidnap Ife, they fall to the ground where Ife hits him with a stick, and then he just leaves her alone as she runs back to the house to go and cry. I mean, this guy has a gun. The other person, Opi Dada himself, gathered some dry grass and then maybe poured fuel on it and set fire to it before they scampered away in their car without Ife. Like, you have a gun, right? Why is a little girl with a stick, which she even threw away, impossible to kidnap? I was honestly in shock when I first saw this scene because I saw the fire and I was expecting, I don't know. This scene just serves to kill the grand uncle in order to motivate Ife for revenge, I guess. But we also never hear of the personal consequences of this failure. Dada and his henchmen never actually mentions the fact that they were not able to get the girl again. I was confused, to be honest. And I think it is here that the movie, which had been sputtering along, just completely falls apart. If this kidnap had been successful, the rest of the movie would not have happened, of course. But the way in which it was not successful was so badly done. And immediately afterwards, it's like they changed the writer from a calm person writing a book to someone who took some of the cocaine that Bimbo Akintola maybe tried at the beginning of the movie. Because the very next day, Opi Dada's wife Kelechi is kidnapped, and the ransom is basically for him to step down from the race. He doesn't withdraw, and the news of his wife's kidnapping is reviewed by a blogger while he's on stage. The kidnappers later contact him and taunt him about his so-called love for his wife, saying that as he did not step down, before asking him to come alone to a new location. Shockingly, he does just that. He is knocked out on arrival, and when he opens his eyes, surprise, surprise, it turns out that his wife Kelechi, Ife, and his side chick Ari were all working together to bring him to his knees. Now, his wife had heard his mother ordering him to kidnap Ife, so she had thrown the gang together and somehow fixed her own kidnapping by, I don't know, hiring some gunmen for God knows where. It's a shouting match ensues where he inadvertently implicates himself, and then we find out that the blogger had been off to the corner recording the entire thing all along. When I saw this scene, the overriding thought was actually, wait, isn't this a kidnapping? Like, yeah, I know social justice is 1, patriarchy is 0, but there's video record of these women actually slapping him while talking to him. As far as I know, this seems like a confession that was extracted under duress. I feel like all he had to do was sue these people for battery and harassment for the case to sort of turn to his favor, even in the court of public opinion. I don't know. This seems like a very dangerous step for Ife and the other women because they just basically live streamed themselves kidnapping a maybe popular candidate for an election. I don't know. Kelechi herself faked her own public kidnap, which is another matter. I don't know, it just seemed a bit one kind. So we end with Ife going back to her grand uncle's place to pick up the girl there to, I don't know, somewhere, now that the uncle is late. They never actually mentioned. The house is still standing there, looking very sexily unburnt. So what was that whole grass on the fire? What was happening? And then we fade to black and see the credits in no particular order as they really, really want you to know. Okay, well, let's get to the verdict. In general, it's a low energy drama. I did not find it difficult to watch, but I found it a bit difficult to review because it dawned on me that there wasn't much going on, which was a bit of a bummer since I had decided to start doing longer videos. The only reason I powered through it was because I set it in a poll and people voted for it. So yeah, I think after this movie, Dima Okojie should go for physiotherapy because she basically just carried this entire thing on the back of her performance. with some help from Ari's Teniola Aladese. Since we are already on the subject, let's start with the acting. I thought Ife's character was well portrayed as someone who was dealing with some sort of traumatic event. She always had this haunting look in her eyes, which went a long way to sell the effect of somebody that was struggling with something. I was not super convinced with OP Dada's acting. I really can't put a finger to it, but I think it's not really the actor. It's more like the backstory of the character itself is not fleshed out, aside from just being a generic governorship candidate with barely any talking points. I think Ari, Ife's best friend, did well too. I saw this movie immediately after I saw A Christmas in Lagos. Like the next minute, it was the next thing that played. So that was my first time seeing Teniola Aladese, and I think she's a pretty good actress. In general, the movie becomes shaky when Ife is not on the screen. So I'm giving a 2.5/5 for the whole pot of stew in general. Okay, let's talk about the plot. I thought it was an interesting premise. Watching Ife break down in the relationship with her fiance and her friend was intriguing. Like I said, the actress did it very well as far as I'm concerned. But I just think that the story was badly written. The whole thing with the kidnap at the end was badly thought out and had a cascading effect on the rest of the story. Like, why go kidnap your enemy and then leave her for no reason so that she will have an opportunity to exact revenge on you? Was it really because she hit you with a stick that you just left her? Like, what are these men eating nowadays that they cannot kidnap somebody effectively? It just didn't make any sense to me at all. As for the plot surrounding OP Dada, even as a political campaign, the story doesn't really work for me because they never actually get down to specifics. I wasn't at all convinced that he was actually running for office. You listen to him, but he's always talking about we no longer operate in darkness or transparency or something gibberish like that. Like, how about you bring up some numbers? It all sounded so childish. I wonder why they didn't just write something interesting for like a real political campaign. The background maybe could have benefited from being less grand. So maybe more like fighting for maybe a public appointment or a private CEO appointment somewhere. I don't know. His mom mentions his father, but we don't know who he was before his death. We also don't know what position OP Dada himself holds in the polls and what the public opinion of him really is, except for the blogger who thinks he's hot. Is he a front runner? Is he a backbencher? We don't really get a sense of what is at stake. We are also not treated to the grand campaigns that would have been expected for the governorship election. So I think this particular framing was sort of a waste of our time. And the movie would have worked better if it had not been aiming for something so grand for its antagonist. It was not at all necessary to have this whole governorship thing, basically. We also don't get any clarity about granduncle's farm and all these issues. Like, there was a point where she bought insecticides for the farm. I mean, it wasn't strictly necessary, but it would have been nice to have seen some kind of small payoff or something. So yeah, aside the main trauma story, the plot is gibberish. So 2/5 for that. For the visuals, they were standard Nollywood fare. Nothing groundbreaking, but nothing disappointing either. So 2.5/5. In general, I find the film weirdly compelling. It's quite slow at some point, but I think the lead actress did a lot of the heavy lifting, elevating this from possibly boring to just slightly interesting. So the movie is sort of slightly more than the sum of its parts, but it's still not the kind of movie that you pause if your plantain is burning or even rewind if you take too long in the toilet. So still a 2.5/5. And with that, I come to the end of the review for A Night in 2005, now streaming on Prime. This should be my last review for the year, making it a total of 22 long-form videos and about 11 shorts since I started this channel on July 28, 2024. Even though I started this out of annoyance after watching Water and Gary, I'm quite proud at how it turned out. So thanks to my 1073 subs and everyone who engages with me here. If you can help it, don't make any New Year resolutions because we all know that you are not going to keep it. Just use your time to do something worthwhile, like pray for dollar to come down. I also cannot wait to review part 2 of this Shabby when it comes out early January. So thanks for watching and have a happy new year.